Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for September 6, 2022. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, if Pastor Hines could come up from Bedford Alliance Church and open us up in prayer, I'd appreciate it.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the privilege you have of living in this nation, and I'm sure everyone here is aware and can remember what happened just 21 years ago. And so, Lord, we thank you for the men and women who serve in the armed forces and for the dedication that they have to protecting us and keeping us free. Lord, I want to thank you and praise you for these men and women that serve in this township and the position they have. I thank you for their commitment to see this township to thrive and to grow. And God, I ask that you would continue to use these men and women in a great way to continue to see this community be just a strong community that builds strong foundations for families and helps them to grow and to be all that you would desire us to be. And so I pray for wisdom for each person here, and I ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you very much. Okay, item 2 is approval of the agenda. Everybody had a chance to look it over?
Motion to approve the agenda is submitted.
Support. Okay, motion in support of Mr. Bruning. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Ms. Janzisek?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 3, the consent agenda. The agenda committee recommends to approve and place on file A, minutes of the August 23rd, 2022 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support. Okay, motion in support of Mr. Gore. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Ms. Janzisek?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Okay, public comment. Comments limited to 5 minutes for board agenda items. Come on up.
Good evening, Logan Tisdale, 1308 Brandywine Street. This in regards to, I believe it's 8G, about the ballot box. Got a couple of questions on that. Will it be located within this building? Will this be the only one? Who will have access to it? Will it be secured from inside? Will it be under surveillance? Will the opening be only large enough for ballots? And how often will it be emptied? I guess with this is an important election coming up, I believe. I've been around for 55 years in the state of Michigan. I can't think of an election that's been more important than the one that's coming up right now, not only on the state level, but the federal level. So I would think anytime we have a drop box like that, if it's not inside the building, I could see like we have when we have a drive-through here, where people come in, they open up the drawer and stuff. That's pretty secure when you see that. And I've seen drop boxes where they are inside the building and where they're secure because the building is secure. So I'm hoping that this is not something that's outside, that's not secure, or that is open to vandalism. And I see it's going to be through a grant, which I don't think it costs the township any money for that. So I think that that's certainly a plus. And if it can help with people not having to mail their ballots in and save them a few extra bucks, and then if that will help get people to get more ballots in on time, that will certainly help. So those are kind of questions I have. If those answers are in a positive, then I would see that would be okay. But if that box is going to be outside and insecure, not secured, then I have a real situational problem with that. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments?
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. I want to comment on 8C and 8E. As far as the noise ordinance, it doesn't really clearly state where this issue is with the garbage trucks. And I was questioning why planning was getting the job to take care of this, or why they had received the complaint. But in my opinion, the noise ordinance needs to have a complete overhaul. It's all chopped up into little bits and pieces. We have the pool rules, we have this rule, we have that rule, and it enables people to create an issue and disturbances versus a simple, straight-out rule such as 116.002, the general regulation says it shall be unlawful for any person to create, continue, or cause to be created unreasonable, unnecessary, excessive, or offensive noise which annoys, etc., etc. That's it. That's all we need. So that way, when the police are called, they will tell you that they've based it on this or based it on that, and they section this rule all out. So the whole thing needs to be rethought through. As far as the deer issue, I will publicly state that I'm the one that found the dead deer carcass in the dumpster. I sent photos with an email to the township people. In my pursuit of trying to get to the bottom line of this, I had followed up with DNR and then had to follow through with the township because according to them, it's illegal to do this. Whether or not anybody will have the guts to step up and say that it was under their authority or their orders, I don't know. I have found out that there was a Dylan Robinette who was given the job. I don't know how he was given the job, how anybody verified it. It's in the minutes from April 2nd of 2019 that there was an allowable allowance of $2,500 for dead deer removal. It also states where Mr. Goldsmith said that the township is responsible to make sure the person has a valid license, insured vehicle, be required to properly dispose of the animal, and would sign a hold harmless agreement. I don't know if any of that's on file with the township or not. I did call Jim Stevens on 8/12. There is no agreement for anybody to be dumping a deer into one of their dumpsters. They're going to get in trouble. They have guidelines that they have to follow, just like with yard waste and everything else. So it's unfair for the township to do that. And I don't believe that every single dead deer needs to be picked up. We have ditches. The road commission will push them into the ditch and will lime them free of charge. So there's no reason why every single deer has to be picked up. I think there's a time and a place that is necessary, but you talk to the people that live on Whitman Drive, and they will tell you that they have been smelling dead deer carcass, or what they didn't even really know what it was, for a very long period of time. And why that was the dumpster that was selected instead of maybe the dumpster back here behind the township hall, who knows? But I'll tell you what, it was awful that day. And I did talk with the guys across the street at the car place there, Gerber's. They actually had to shut their doors down a couple of days because of the smell. So it's a health hazard. And I just wish Mr. Robinette was here to tell us who told him that it was okay to put those dead deer and who validated it. But we had paid him at the last meeting $900 to pick up 3 dead deer. So it's not a matter that maybe the ones in the middle of a subdivision road should not be picked up. There needs to be a policy and procedure, and if we're going to be paying big bucks, it needs to be bid out. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Any more comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, moving on to vouchers for payment. Ms. Hirschberger?
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $109,728.93. Fire District, $58,420.46. Park Operating, $1,275.49. Fire Equipment, $618.17. Downtown Development, $610.64. Library Operating, $5,203.07. American Rescue Plan, $872.50. Building Department, $3,514.35. Sewer O&M Fund, $9,616.08. Trust and Agency Fund, $2,409.63, for a grand total of $192,269.32.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported. Anybody have any discussion? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Prony?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8B, variance from the Development Design Standards Ordinance 65 on parcel 5802-025-032-00. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I look for a motion.
Go ahead and make a motion to approve the variance from the Development Design Standards Ordinance 65 on parcel 5802-025-032-00.
A second for discussion.
Okay, motion in support of Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Bud?
So we need to add a little bit more details in there, especially being that this is also a conditional rezoning. It's conditional from ag to I-1 industrial. We should state that that is exactly what it is a conditional rezoning. The reason that this is probably okay for this particular site is it is limited to vehicular traffic. And I will say that L.A. Bexton has been around since I was a little kid, so it's been around a while. They've been in Bedford Township for years. Pretty good safety record as well there. I see that they've also got a location in Perrysburg, Ohio, which I was not aware of until this came across. They're only looking to use 5 acres out of 25 acres. It's down in the, what I want to say, it's right on the wedge of Telegraph and Minks Road. They're going to carve out 5-acre parcel right at the corner of where Minks and Telegraph meet. So there's no major impact. It also states in some of the comments that there's some jurisdiction that could take place from either MDOT or Monroe County Road Commission. So those things need to be taken into consideration and added to the motion, that those authorities also may have requirements that must be followed.
Ms. Rucker, do you have anything you'd like to add? Or?
I don't have anything to add. I just here if you had any questions or comments, but the applicants are here as well.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, first of all, Jody did an excellent job of putting this packet together for you, so you had a clear understanding of what the applicant is requesting, what they propose to do, and how they propose to go about it. But I would recommend that it be added to the motion, unless I missed it, at the bottom of what's been marked as 8B, which is part of Jody's submission to the board, that the that the granting of the variance from the design ordinance standards be conditioned upon those 2 points. 1, review and approval for a proposed conditional rezoning agreement from agricultural zoning district to I-1 industrial, and 2, subject to the site plan approval process, which would include review and approval from all reviewing agencies, which would include, as Rick stated, either MDOT and or Monroe County Road Commission or both. So that would be my recommendation.
You good with that?
I agree with that.
Okay.
Can add that in, or do we just do the friendly amendment?
I think you're good just by
Friendly
Part of the friendly amendment,
Yep.
so we can do that.
Yeah. It would be Rick's friendly amendment, not
Yeah,
mine.
I can add that to my friendly amendment. I did miss the part about saying about the site plan review, so that definitely need to be added.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay. Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Berkshire votes aye. Mr. Prony?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8C, you're coming right back up. Approve adding a text amendment section 16 waste disposal service of ordinance 41. Ms. Rucker?
Yes, we've been having some calls of concern from different areas of the community. It's been going on, I think, working with Officer Cecil for many years. We just don't have any defined language that says when waste disposal vehicles can be, especially within residential districts. Some calls we've been getting have been like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I've explained to residents, we have to understand, due to OSHA requirements, sound, beeping, noise, lights, those types of things are required on vehicles for that type of use. However, in all of the other portions of the ordinance, such as loading and unloading, with construction, there are specific hours from 10:30 to 7 in the morning that those types of uses cannot be or are not supposed to be being utilized, especially in residential districts, to avoid noise ordinance, nuisance of ambient sound, those types of things. So all I'm asking is for clarification. I've tried to work with one of the waste disposal unit facilities that have had several complaints. I call, you get the corporate office, and finally got through to one of the routing managers and the on-site manager. One was informed that they're not supposed to leave the facility till 5, so I asked, well, how could they be in Bedford Township in that short of time if at 4:58 when they're not supposed to leave before 5? The routing manager told me that they're not supposed to actually clock with their machines till 6. So I don't really know. I mean, I'm sure everybody has flexible hours of what times they're supposed to work. I'm just asking for the board to consider taking some clarification, because I don't have anything to say. You can't be in residential districts. The noise ordinance does say that it cannot be a nuisance to any neighbor. And if you read the first, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's the employee or, from what legal might be able to clear that, but I read it as when it states, with loading and unloading any vehicle or the opening and or destruction of bales, boxes, crates, or containers, if any noise of the duration is 7 decibels over the fixed source of the noise when it's measured at the property line between the hours of 10:30 and 7. It's in loading and unloading. It's in the portion of the ordinance in construction, pile drivers, shovels, hammers, hoists, tractors, rollers, other mechanical apparatuses, and it specifies it from 10:30 to 7. When you get into waste disposal, it just says, it shall be unlawful for any person, firm, or corporation, authorized disposal service, or garbage disposal service, or garbage collection to provide such services as to create an unnecessary amount of noise. For the purpose of this section, noise is emitted by equipment shall not be deemed unnecessary or without justification if the person engages in such services has, to the extent reasonably feasible, in the judgment of the township board, incorporated available sound deadening devices into equipment using rendering those of the services. So I just am asking for the 10:30 to 7 to be added to that section of the portion of the ordinance to give clarification. When a resident calls, then we can at least follow up with defined, because everybody knows each person in their own opinion is when a noise becomes a nuisance.
Okay, board members? Mr. Matrai?
So I guess my first thought is echoing one of the public comments, which is, why is planning handling ordinance complaints?
Well, we work together. Ordinance and planning both work together. Officer Cecil or Officer Pitson will come up when we have other complaints, such as just for clarification. But when we get a call of this with the garbage disposal in the township, I don't think it matters if it's even an elected official. There's no defined way to handle it with the waste disposal service, because there's nothing defined that says that they can't be in the residential districts at 7 a.m., 5 in the morning.
I don't feel like you should have to be dealing with.
Well, I deal with a lot of ordinances. I mean, we're working, Planning Commission right now is working on sign ordinance. We have, we just worked on the chicken. This is just a general code ordinance, so it's not always defined in planning as a planning and zoning, but we all work together with the ordinance department defining such as home occupations. If someone calls about a home occupation, ordinance gets the complaint, and then they'll come ask me because it's in zoning code. How do we handle that? What are the restrictions? Where do we take it from here? And we do work together on a lot of things. If they need a portion of the ordinance to support their reason for complaint, then they come get that information from me. So we do all work very well together. I know Officer Cecil has handled some, and we've been working on this together, I will say, since Mr. Stewart was supervisor. So it's something that we just don't have nothing defined, and I feel if it's one resident or if it's 5 residents, it's still a resident in our community, and our ordinance should protect all of those residents.
Well, I would argue that to a certain extent, in the sense that one person's complaint, if it will negatively affect, if it negatively affects the entire community because of one person's complaint, I don't think that the entire community should be punished, which they would be, I believe, with if we change the ordinance that drastically. I don't know if I'm against having something specified. Just on its face, construction and trash pickup are 2 very different things. I expect trash pickup to be very early, before buses and schools and kids are out and all that kind of stuff. I expect the garbage guy to already have been through, basically. Where construction is, I feel like, a completely different world in the sense of like when you're expecting construction crews to be starting work in the morning. I called Stevens when we had gotten this. I gave Stevens a call just to find out in a generality. I know that they weren't who was listed. I think they had Republic on the picture or whatever, but I just wanted to call and just talk to somebody and see if how I was thinking about this situation was accurate. And the guy that I talked to there, I just asked in general. I said, if we enacted this ordinance, how would that affect, or what kind of effects would take place? And he said, basically off the top of his head, he goes, you have 20, and that's just Stevens. That's not Republic or Waste Management, and I don't know who else, what other services we have there. I think there's one more maybe, that Stevens has 20 some odd routes through Bedford, that he said typically there, and it's probably the same thing as, like, it's kind of a rule of thumb. It's not necessarily they're not allowed to leave before, or they're not allowed to be at their first stop before a certain time or anything. He goes, rule of thumb are commercial routes start at 5 and residential start at 6. So he goes, if somebody has commercial at the beginning of their route, they're hitting, and then they're rolling into, he goes, it happens where, like, they went and hit some commercial stops, and then they're going through residential earlier than 6. But he said that's is what it is. But he said if you pushed those routes back to they're not starting until 7. He said you're adding at least an hour to residential, 2 hours to commercial, and then that's more than that in and of itself, because which I see in my line of work, like the later a truck starts, it's not just an hour backed up throughout the day. They're getting a lot of stuff done when there's no traffic out there. So it just will pushes the entire thing out. He said they'd have to, off the top of his head, he goes, just us, we'd have to add at least 3 more routes in Bedford, probably 3 more trucks, 3 more drivers, which is, there's no way to get around, isn't going to increase trash bills, which I think already there's enough people not happy about the increase in all of their bills, let alone increasing trash bills again. So that would be something that would negatively affect the entire community, because I don't know. It's a hard one for me to even understand. I didn't know that everyone didn't understand that garbage trucks go out early. I don't know if the same people complain about the school buses being out before they decide to get out of bed, or what. But the other thing is like places like schools that they have to be there before 7. They can't be
a garbage truck can't be at a school at 7:30 when you have a million school buses and all those people going throughout. So I feel like 7 is, for a myriad of reasons, 7 just seems, I think, ridiculous to ask. But I don't know, and I don't know if you change it to 5:30, are you changing, what are we changing? He did suggest, the guy that I talked to suggested, which it sounded like if you're dealing with a more corporate company, might be a little bit harder to get a hold of somebody or whatever. He's like, I feel like it's the type of thing that if you called the company and say, hey, this is our situation, can you make an adjustment to a route or something? He goes, typically that shouldn't be that big of a deal. Like that, companies will typically be able to move some stuff, or move a little thing around that wouldn't be a drastic change like this. So I don't know. That's my thoughts, and I don't know what anybody else thinks about it, but I'm very, very opposed to at least this. I think 6 isn't that early. Isn't very early for a garbage truck to be out. So that's up to. I mean, I don't know what everybody else thinks,
comments
but
from the public. Comment time is at comment time. We can't keep making comments from the public here. Okay, you can make another comment at the 2-minute comment time. Okay.
If I could just address, I was just suggesting that 10:30 to 7 is because it's what's in unloading and loading. It's what's in construction. It's what's in the general portion of the noise section of this ambient noise ordinance. So that's where I'm not saying that that's what has to be in there. I'm not, whatever the desire of the board is.
Yeah.
I just feel that as the representative in the planning and with ordinances and language, that my job is to bring it to you if a resident is having concerns and it's not defined, and our ordinance says there's no way to enforce it because there is no defined language, then it does need to come before you for a clear understanding of where we go to explain. And I did reach out to the disposal service, and they do tend to change the route for a week, and then it's right back to the early hours. So if whatever the desire of the board is, I just feel that I know a couple of other residents have reached out to some of the trustees, and we just need to all be, I just felt like you needed to know that this was becoming more of a concern because it was getting earlier in the morning time. It was 6 at one time, and then I think the last time it was like 4:58 or whatever was on the, but I did reach out to the trash service, and they addressed it for a week, and then the next week they were there early again. And I agree with the fact that we can't control those types of things. Schools, of course, commercial, of course, always wants it, but we have it listed in loading and unloading, and I look at trash disposal as loading and unloading. So I'm just asking for direction, that if your desire is to leave it the way it is, or if your desire is to put a time frame on it, but then we need direction on how we're going to address it with the business owners, or are we just going to tell the residents there's nothing at this time we can do about it?
yeah, I have zero interest in doing anything with it. And you want to make it 3 of them. They can't be out earlier than 3 in the morning. But besides that, yeah. And then it's a little bit of a first world problem. And that the garbage truck that's taking your garbage out at 5 in the morning is a little too loud for you. And I don't know. I hardly think that's people getting up too early and getting to work in this country is, we could maybe use more of it. But I'm interested in anybody else's opinion.
Ms. Hirschberger?
I've gotten the calls, and I've transferred them to Jody and transferred them to Damon. It is the one company. I have not received complaints from the other refuge companies, just the same one. One of the complaints that we received is there's only one person on that whole road that has this company. And the person that was complaining even went to that person and said, hey, I'll help pay your bill if you'll switch so that they don't have to come down this road anymore. And the people said no, they didn't want to do that. So, and it's the same person that Jody called, and they switched the route for a week, and then they were right back. But the picture you're seeing there is not even a day that garbage was being picked up. The company is now just harassing them.
I don't know if I believe that.
Mr. Bruning?
I'd like
Is
to
that
hear
how
what input you have on this, Phil.
Well, if you decide to change it, sometimes less is better, and I would just change the hours. I wouldn't get involved in trying to measure noise or ambient noise level with a meter, which requires an expenditure of revenue that's unnecessary. So maybe an opportunity exists here for you to say, with commercial, maybe earlier, 6 a.m., and with residential, 7 a.m. People don't always work the same hours. People work midnights, people work days, people work afternoons, so their sleep patterns are different. What bothers me is that Jody spent a lot of time reaching out to, I'm just going to say it, Republic. And like she said, the behavior changed for a while, and then it appeared, based on some fairly credible evidence, that there was some retaliation for a suggestion even being made that you might want to adjust your routes or your timing for your routes, especially in residential areas. So if you want to bifurcate it and say commercial 6 a.m. and residential 7 a.m., that's something that the board could give some thought to. I don't want you to get into measuring sound, decibels, anything like that. That again, less is oftentimes better, and it would just be setting timing. So this in no way was directed at Stevens. If you call Stevens and with an issue, they'll address it, and they have. And so they're more of our hometown company, but they've been very responsive to just to complaints. So it's kind of disheartening when you spend a lot of time reaching out to corporate, and then you get shifted to somebody locally here, a manager. You make your complaint or relay the complaint, and then it appears that there's been retaliatory action taken just based on a complaint. Come on, what's that about? So probably more than you wanted to hear, but if you wanted to switch it up time between commercial, industrial, commercial, and residential, you could consider that.
Mr. Gore?
On the lines of 4 o'clock is too early to be on, and if Republic, if they did come down this street to harass one of our citizens, that's unacceptable. We can't have that. We probably can't prohibit Republic from doing business in Bedford, can we?
No.
So.
But you can,
But we don't have
for the public health, safety,
Correct.
and welfare and the repose of the neighborhoods, you can legitimately limit the time frame.
Right.
We do it with construction. And to Craig's point, yeah, construction is a little bit different than refuse pickup. It just depends on the equipment, the size of the equipment. Sometimes in tight residential quarters, it's not a through drive, so you're not hearing the mandatory backup horns. But sometimes in some of our tighter residential areas, they back in. And so you hear you don't want to hear that at 4 a.m., the beep, 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 to get to where they start and then they load and go out. That's been an issue that's been expressed to Jody. So
just so you know, Joe, I brought up, I don't know, what was it, 5-6 years ago, discussion. I don't know if I brought it to the board or not, but having that, do like Frenchtown does, to where you have one company bid it out, or you bid it out and one company does it. They go in quadrants, and that's a way you have one company or a local.
Okay.
But as far as, I think we have 4 or 5 different garbage companies locally that do it,
Well,
because it is frustrating for our roads.
Right.
You can have 5 garbage trucks coming through in a day. It tears the roads
too,
up.
I understand 4 o'clock's too early, but like Craig said, 7 o'clock, for me, it's a safety issue. If you drive down Smith Road, Stearns Road, or when I drive and drop off at my kids at the junior high in Jackman Road on Tuesday mornings, there's always a garbage truck, and traffic is backed up, and you have to wait to get a clearance to go around the other lane. You got cars coming and going. So I do think there needs to be some leeway to where they can get out earlier. 4 o'clock to me is a little early. I've never seen a truck on all the years I worked midnights down here and patrolling on midnights. I've never seen a garbage truck at 4 in the morning. Not saying that is. I'm concerned with the harassment. If it was true harassment and they drove down there on a non-pickup day, that's BS with our citizens. And I will tell you, I have Republic, and I've switched, and I might be switching back. All right? So, because I'm not going to tolerate anybody harassing our citizens like that. Something minor and trivial. That's ridiculous. Republic should have nipped it in the bud and been done with it. So, that's what I have
but
to
it's
say.
been over a year of us talking to Republic, and complaints just continue to come in.
And I believe the property owner actually called over and tried to speak to them as well and got no answer. And the comment was made when I asked about if there was any way to even just change the routes that go into our residential district. I was asked if there was anything within the ordinance that restricted them, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah, their response was, if it's not in the ordinance, we'll do what we want.
Okay.
Which
So has
in reality they can do.
So I haven't heard of this issue.
Right.
I mean, I've received 3 complaints in the 6 years I've been full time, roughly. I obviously you guys, everybody gets calls in every department, because our phone tree isn't very good in my opinion. But I don't know how many complaints we've had. I know, typically it's behind Kroger's and they're there too early and all the residents, you know what I mean. But I think a meeting. I mean, I would have liked to try to have a meeting with Damon in the sheriff's office if they're going on an odd day harassing. I mean, and try to,
We tried.
Well,
I mean, if
maybe
we're-
some enforcement with commercial motor vehicle through the state police. If they're out and about at that time. Maybe
Well,
they
the problem
can
is we don't
check
have a
on their
time
truck.
here, so
What's that?
there's no time. So
Right.
there's nothing to
I
enforce.
understand that.
Well, what is there a way? And I don't know how everybody feels. Is there a way? We could table this and sit down with Stevens and some of the people to see how it's going to affect, and maybe talk to them first before we make a change. Because, like Greg said, we make a change today, and like Stevens isn't the issue, and now they're charging the residents more.
You
We're
should
going
not
to
be
hear about
punishing
it.
Stevens for.
Correct.
It's going to be punishing the
But you're
residents.
going to
Punishing
by-
the
you know what
residents,
I
too.
mean?
It's
Correct.
how it goes, though. One person ruins it for everybody. You have Republic ruining it for Stevens and everyone else.
Yep.
You can do that. You can invite them to the table. I don't know whether they'll come. So far, they've been non-responsive in terms of working with Jody.
But
And
what
she's
if
pretty
they-
easy to work with.
What
And
if the other companies came, though?
Yeah, but
And we could figure out a good time with the other companies, and
you invite
wow.
everybody to the table, and those who come, and ultimately it's your decision. And I appreciate the fact that you would want to work with them and try to understand their industry and understand how they do and why they do things, and maybe come up with a compromise. So that's a good thing, and you can do that, but ultimately it's your decision.
we might find out from Stevens. They might say, "Hey, 6 would be fine for us," and then we could just say, "Hey, let's change it to 6," and then Republic is affected by it.
right.
And I'm fine
So-
with that.
Or
Well,
we
they
just-
shouldn't be affected based on the information they provided Jody. They said they're not supposed to be out, in
They're
residential
not
areas.
supposed to clock out till 6 when
Yeah.
they leave the facility.
Yeah, yeah. So if you pegged it at 6, that, at least based on what she's been told, that would be in keeping with their corporate policy.
It's not really consistent with what you got told. Was
Well, I talked to Stevens, and it didn't sound like they had a
Okay, I thought you were
a
talking about Stevens.
hard line rule. It more sounded like, as a generalization, like, okay, yeah, we're starting commercial at 5 and you're starting residential at 6. And if you have commercial at like the beginning of your route and then you're landed into residential after a few commercial stops, then yeah, you're going to be there before 6, but like, it is what it is.
So what's the pleasure of the board? Do you want to table,
Like the
have a
idea of
meeting? Do you
tabling
want-
it and invite those that come, and you know what? Republican deal with what we decide to do.
Because if Stevens can make do with 6, that's fine.
Who wants to spearhead this?
Jody, can you and I?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Paul,
Motion to
who do we
table?
use- Who do we use real quick for on Tuesdays for our recycling bins? Is it Stevens?
Republic.
Republic?
It's not
us,
ours.
it's the health
It's the
department.
county's
They contract
program.
with them.
All right, then is there anything we can do to move away from that, from them using our
Oh, yeah.
township
We don't have to let them
property?
use our property.
Then the
But
county
it's-
needs to know that and move it somewhere else, so we're not supporting a business that's harassing our citizens.
Well, I think we need to get to the bottom of that, though.
Well,
It could just be one
They
drive.
don't have time to.
Yeah,
They don't have
we-
time to answer their phone, but they got time to drive out of their way to. I don't know.
yeah, well, let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so somebody want to make a motion to table? Okay.
You made the motion. I
Oh,
support
okay.
it.
Well, that wasn't a motion, but I'll make the motion. And you support?
Yep.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Mr. Proney?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye.
Okay, the motion passed 7-0.
Thank
you,
you.
Jody. Appreciate it. Item 8D, road closures for Fire Prevention Day. Chief?
Well, good evening. So we are at Fire Prevention Week again. It's coming up quickly. One of the things we did want to do is kind of show off our Station 2 that was just remodeled. With that, we had done it over there a few years in the past, and we did have to do a few road closures just to make sure that we could do it safely. So we are looking to close off Dean in front of the station, and then Freeman up until Delray. They would all have access to Summerfield. There we go. They would have access to Summerfield, and then anybody on Dean would have access to Secor. So again, that is just so we can set up displays, and we don't have to worry about traffic and any type of hazards with it.
Okay. Comments, questions? Okay, I look for a motion.
I'll make a motion for the road closure for Fire Protection Day at our Dean Road Fire Station. Close Monroe Road and Freeman Street between Dean and Summerfield Roads in Bedford Township on October 15th, 2022 from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Support.
Okay, motion and support of Mr. Bruning. Any more discussion? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Proney?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, item 8E, update on deer removal.
All right, this would be me. I sent this to Trudy after last month.
Todd, pull your mic up.
Mike? Okay. Yeah, after last month, Paul informed the public, if anyone didn't know, that we do provide deer removal. Dylan Robinette had been doing it, and I requested, pretty much I wanted to know what his whole procedure was, because we had a deer end up in the dumpster, as Gail mentioned. So I wanted him to show up and explain how people called, how it was verified, because he just submits resume invoices, and we pay him. So I want to know if there was two-person control. Pretty much I want to know his whole operation. Well, then Trudy informed me he wasn't going to do it anymore, so now he doesn't have to show up and tell us what he did. He charged us $300. Well, that's what he charges us now, is $300 per deer. And I had Bob print me up the invoices. He's been doing it since 2018. So for 2018, we paid him $125. For the 2019-2020 year, we paid him $1,750. For the 2020-21 year, we paid him $2,500. And then for the 2021-2022 year, $9,175. He must not have been working. Must have been off from COVID or something, because he stuck it to us there. But, and then for 2022, 2023, that was the last invoice that we approved. That was, what, 2 months ago, for $900. So $300 a deer. So he didn't want to show up tonight and answer any questions we had. He quit doing it. So now Bob, our finance director, has volunteered to do it. He does it for $150 a deer. He disposes of them on his property, so he has the property to dispose of them. He's already checked DNR and everything else, correct, Bob? That's correct. So Bob has the okay to do it, but as far as that goes, if anyone in the public out there would like to do it, you can bid on it. You know, Bob's doing them for $150 a deer. If you want to beat him, submit your bid, I guess. But I don't know. It's like, I don't know how well you wanted. I mean, some of them deer are pretty nasty. They've been sitting there for a while. You need a shovel to scoop them up. So anyways, that's where we're at. I tried to answer as many questions, get as many of them answered as I could for you, Gail. But like I said, with Dylan stepping down, he doesn't have to tell us anything now.
He didn't step down.
Trudy told me he quit doing it.
No, he didn't quit doing it. We just found somebody to do it cheaper.
I'd like to have some questions answered. How 1 year it equates to 6 deer, the following year it was 8 deer, and then the following year 30 deer.
Yeah.
How do you go from 6 to 8 to 30?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the deer or the people that hit them. I mean, I don't.
Well, I was one of them that hit a deer back in June, and I never found it on section road.
But
so.
then also, as far as that goes for anyone, because if you do hit a deer, if it's still alive or if it's fresh, you no longer have to get a permit from the sheriff anymore. You go to DNR's website, you print up your own salvage tag. I had one in my neighbor's yard. Dude, it's still good. I mean, it just all depends how it got hit and everything else. The meat where it got hit isn't going to be too good, but dude, I still eat them. It's fine with me. If you get them while they're still fairly fresh, I mean, it's going to be good. But that's where we're at. So as far as deer removal, Bob's doing it for us now.
Todd, I guess you had a question. So what is the protocol for the person? How is Dylan getting his calls to pick up deer?
I had the same
A resident
question.
calls and says, "Hey, there's a dead deer in my
But how
ditch in the front yard, or a dead deer on the side of the road."
There's no checks and balances.
But how'd they get his direct
What
number?
would you guys like for me to drive out and check and make sure there's
No,
a
I'm
dead
just
deer
saying,
there?
is his number on our website, though? How do people get it?
No, they have to call the supervisor's office, and then they would call Dylan and tell Dylan
Okay,
where to
so
Yeah,
it
they
is
call the
coming
township.
through here.
We call
That-
Dylan.
that was my question,
Or we
'cause-
text him and we tell him the location of the deer and he goes and gets it.
Okay, so that was because Todd asked that question. I was just trying to get that clarified. How because it sounded like
As
it
far
wasn't
as
coming.
dumping in a dumpster, I don't know who Miss Keene is calling, but it's not illegal. So, I mean, and, if there's a time when there's because if you have one and, you have a woods, or, whatever, or a spot to take it, because sometimes they're bad. You can't even pick them up.
Yep.
But there has been times where we put them in the dumpster. We call Stevens and they don't promote it. It's not a big deal. So I don't know what Miss Keene's talking about there. So we don't have any issues with it. The price went up and part of the reason was he moved 40 minutes away, so he had a longer drive. And at that point, we're like, well, we need to figure something out. So we made phone calls to different companies, and he was still cheap to some of the companies. Now, we didn't advertise it to anybody in the community to come. And Mr. Miller showed an interest that, hey, I'd be interested in doing it. I would do it for the $150, which, we're like, for now, and if the board wants to put it out for bid, we could put it out for bid, So, Ms. Januzak?
I just also want to note that Bob is doing it after work. He's not doing it on work hours. Just so that way there's no question. If someone has a question, is he doing it during working hours? No, he's doing it on his personal time after work hours.
So if the board wants to put it out for bid to the public, I mean, I don't know. We can do whatever we want to do, figure it out. I mean, but there's no issues. I don't know what, Miss Keene doing an investigation with the deer in the dumpster and making a big stink of it. We did our homework, so I don't know what the problem is. Mr. Matra, you got a question?
What is the process? Have we established a process to verify whatever moving forward, whether Mr. Miller is doing it or anyone else is doing it? I feel like we've identified kind of an issue in that regard. Like, okay, how are we verifying anything?
So it's trust. I mean, you got to trust the people that
they're not going out there and scamming the township. And
committing a crime. I mean, I get text messages, messenger requests, Facebook posts and I take them, I'll screenshot them, and I'll send them to whoever. I'm not going out on a Saturday and going to make sure there's a dead deer on the side of the road.
Well, that's what I was saying.
You know what I mean? If a resident calls, we got Miss Kane. We're having a discussion. You got to stop. You know, so I mean, that's this way it is. There's a lot of things that the township does to where you hope that people are being honest. So.
Yeah, no, and I have no problem with that. I don't think it's like I don't think that there was like major oversight or anything. I just think like if you've identified that's not a bad idea to have some sort of check.
If the township wants to put something in place and put a protocol in place, do it. And he'll have to follow the protocol. I mean, maybe Bob goes and takes a picture with the dead deer at the address and sends it in. I don't know.
Put it on Facebook.
So with that day's newspaper.
But if the board wants to come up with something, come up with something. But as of right now, we get the calls. I mean, residents aren't calling us and saying there's a dead deer when there's not a dead deer. And I can guarantee if Bob goes and there's no dead deer, he's not charging us.
And again, that's one that all our departments are getting these calls. They want us to pick up all kinds of dead animals. Deer we'll pick up.
Keep in mind, too, you see an increase in things because people find out that we have the service. Yeah. It's just like the community cleanup days. The first couple of years was $5,000. The next time was $15,000. So we don't always have to assume there's something shady going on. The guy charged more because he moved away, and at that point we took action and we said, hey, let's make some phone calls, try to find somebody cheaper. We were not successful with the company, and Bob stepped up. So if you guys want to put it out for bid, and I'm sure you'd find somebody to do it cheaper.
Well, even right now, someone could just walk in and say, I'll do it cheaper.
Somebody could do it cheaper, I'm sure. But I think 150 is extremely reasonable to go pick up a dead 150-pound animal and haul it in a bag and go bury it. It's a pretty good deal, if you ask me, especially one that got called 3 days later and is bloated and rank.
We would have to, if we're going to change, though, they would have to come in and sign and give us all the information like we have now.
Yeah.
It couldn't just be someone coming in and saying, I want to do it.
No, yeah, everything, like I's dotted, T's crossed, everything like that, just like, so insurance, the whole nine. But
So what's the pleasure of the board? What do you want to do?
This was just to update.
No, I know, but do you want to do anything moving forward? Because there was a lot of discussion on,
No, I'm fine. Just bring it.
And we didn't go over budget.
The public to know.
I mean, we didn't have an amount. How are we going to budget so much for deer removal when you go to that point where you say, hey, sorry, we're out of money for deer removal? No, you'd have to go to the board and get a change. But
if you want a true cross-check, you get the call at Township Hall, you log it, dead deer and address. Turn it over to Mr. Miller, or if it's somebody else, turn it over. And then when that invoice comes in, you go back, you reference it, and say, okay, here's dead deer on this street, and this street. Okay, there it is. So there's your check and balance.
All the deer are logged.
He may log them, but what if he gets another phone call himself somehow, or he's driving along the road and sees a deer? At least then we can count on him to say, hey, send it back to Township Hall, say, I came across this deer that I had to pick up. So you still have a check log over here for when his invoice comes in.
We're not doing that. We're not driving around looking for deer. We're getting calls.
No.
I'm just telling you. You said it. I'm saying we get calls. We go. I don't want Bob looking for deer.
No, but if he's driving down
the road commission will put lime on it.
Right, if he's driving down the road, especially and if somebody just ran into it.
You guys put on an update for what reason? I don't know. I mean, it's. And here we are. I'm trying to give you information, and
So let me finish that. If Bob's driving down the road, not looking for a deer, maybe Bob's looking for a new piece of property, but he drives down the road, sees that somebody just hit a deer.
Well, you complain about these things, Ms. Kane, and make them out to be something that they're not, and that's why we're here, and it's not a problem. So, okay, all right, moving on. Thanks for the update, Mr. Bruning.
Welcome.
Okay, item 8F.
What's the process? We didn't finish that. What's the process?
Do you want to make a process? Because right now the process is we get a call from a resident, okay? We get the address, we send it to Mr. Miller, he logs it in, he goes and gets the deer. If you want to do a process, do a process.
I was very clear The call comes into Township Hall, it gets logged in, here's the address, and it's a dead deer. Then it turns over to Mr. Miller. When Mr. Miller's invoice comes in, because it may not always be Bob. The invoice comes in, you go back to the sheet, say, yes, we had this deer, and this deer. That invoice is approved to be paid. Not just because somebody said, oh, he's honest, 3 deer, good to go.
Okay.
Can I respond to that? I asked Al, and Al said he has a log of.
I've already
when the
said we have a
calls
log. And
come in.
No, you didn't say we had a
yeah,
log.
I did.
Paul.
I just said we had a log. He logs them now.
You said Bob will log them, but that's
No, I said he logs them now too. We log them all. We get the calls.
all right. I'm not going to argue with you.
We're
I
not
asked for a
trying to
simple
argue.
Process.
It's
Yeah, Al
something
has
being
a
made
log.
up because we get a call from a resident
That's-
and it gets made to be a big
That's
deal when
what I
it's
was
not.
asking, and it was not stated that it was.
Okay, well it is.
So we've got 2 points now. We've got Al or you or somebody's logging over here, turns it over to Mr. Miller or whomever. That person then sends the invoice to do the cross-check. Simple as that.
Okay, are
Yeah,
you
I'm
going to
sure.
put that in writing? Are you going to make are we just assuming that and we're just going to do it and then it doesn't get done? I mean, it should be in writing, right?
Well, if we're
Goldsmith?
gonna-
That's what
Does it have
I mean,
to be in writing? I mean, it's a process.
well, but a process should be in writing to somewhat of what he's supposed to do.
It's a pretty simple process that has just been explained. So if a log is kept, well, what you've just explained makes all the sense in the world. Call comes in, it's logged in, Bob or whoever's doing it goes out, he identifies it at that address, he picks it up, he photographs it, he probably puts a timestamp on it. So when he submits his invoice, he's got proof he did the work, and it's cross-checked against the log that where the call came in. So for the log to be accurate, you're going to have one person responsible for taking those calls. Now, otherwise, or it gets directed to a person who can log it and keep a ledger.
Well, they've always been transferred to the supervisor's office.
Okay, so then
Nobody
Al,
else has
Okay.
ever turned in a deer.
So then,
Outside of us.
if your deputy supervisor is keeping that log, just, if you want to put it in writing, that's fine. It sounds like it's a fairly straightforward process right now that is being utilized. So
It's been working great.
Okay,
And it's,
so-
like I said,
Well, I'm sure Bob's invoices are going to be better, but Dylan's here. Here's one, for example. We had to pay $50, not recovered. Another $50, not recovered. And then remove. There's no addresses on there. I'm sure Bob's going to write his address on his invoice. So I'm not worried about Bob.
that should all be recorded.
Yeah,
When the call
there's
comes
nothing
in, it's
recorded on
logged.
these invoices. This one just has dates on it. So it doesn't even say recovered or not recovered. And then the price changes all the time.
well, you didn't ask Al for anything. You just assume stuff, and you assume people are doing this and that. You got to do more homework.
I asked.
You can't just put on the agenda,
Send-
update on deer removal. For who? For you. You gave an update.
No, I sent an email to Trudy.
I know. But
Well,
you said one to me.
let's bring this to a conclusion.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Rick,
done. I think
let's bring it to a conclusion. Rick and I, with your approval, will put together a very brief process and submit it to the board at the next meeting for approval. And that'll be the end of it. It's just going to be the way we talked about it tonight.
Because, and the frustration I'm showing here is the same resident. Every time we have issues is the one causing change and causing us to spend money. Same resident. And it gets old. And and everybody jumps. Mr. Bruning jumps when he gets the call. Mr. Bruning jumps, get the call, get one. Come on.
And any resident.
All right. Yeah, I know
For
it's the
people.
same one though, and you. All right, moving on. 8F.
Paul, I'll write something up and send it to everybody by email. If you don't like it, you can let me know, but I don't see a reason why we'd have to bring it back for approval.
No, I'm fine with
Pretty simple, but it needs to be in writing.
Yeah, just have it
I'm fine with that. All right, 8F, resolution to amend the sewage disposal connection inspection fees. Ms. Janzak.
So the reason this is coming to us tonight is when residents tap into sewer or commercial or even builders tap into our sewer, the sewer treatment plant, they have to go out and make an inspection on the sewer line at the connection to make sure that it is properly connected. I spoke with the sewer treatment plant, or I'm sorry, my utilities clerk did. And at the cost that we were charging of $50 was not covering the inspection costs that we are incurring. So that is why I brought it to the board today to raise it from $50 up to $100. What that includes is it includes an hour of their time, the use of the truck, and any equipment that they may need during that time. I don't like to raise fees, but I also don't want to lose money because the sewer system has to be self-sufficient. That's why it came today, because we're actually paying out more than what we're getting in for inspection fees.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions? Okay. Seeing none, I look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to raise the fees from $50 to $100 with the resolution as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion in support of Mr. Bruning. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Prony?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8G, approved purchase of a drop box for elections. Ms. Hirschberger?
So this box would replace the one we currently have inside the township. The one inside the township is so small that sometimes the ballots will go in and get jammed, and then on the weekends I'm going over there trying to empty the box because people can't get any more ballots into it. So we would just take the tiny little box that's inside the township off and put a larger box there. So we wouldn't even have to replace the drop in the building. It would just stay there, and this box would hook into the current drop we have.
Okay, comments, questions?
It would be locked. It would be locked, and then during election season, the only people that would empty it would be either myself, my deputy, my assistant, or anyone that we have sworn in as election workers.
The other thing that is deposited into that is anything in the night deposit that comes through, which is sewer bills and tax bills as well. So that's the only way we could keep it secure to have it in the building, is utilize that one drop slot instead of having to put it another hole in the building, which is obviously more expensive. So that's why she's utilizing that one big area.
And we work together, and during election season, we'll just take out all the sewer bills and water bills or whatever else that comes in there and give them to her department, and we'll take all the ballots.
Yep.
Do we currently accept ballots in our Dropbox?
Yes.
Goodness
Always
gracious.
have.
We always have.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, look for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we purchase the new drop box for $1,076 from the American Security Cabinets as presented.
Second.
Is that support for Mr. Steiner? Okay, supported. Mr. Steiner, discussion?
I do have one other thing. There will be cameras, like, I don't know if you mentioned that or not. There will be cameras on the inside as well as the outside, correct?
Right now, they're saying we don't need them on the inside, just
Okay.
the outside, but if that law changes, then we would have to add
I was
them.
just making sure we answered.
Yeah, the outside boxes right now, they're saying they're going to need them, but if it's an inside box in a secure government building, we just need a camera on the outside, which we have right now.
Correct.
So there's surveillance at the point where the ballot is deposited.
Correct.
That goes in to the box, which is inside the building.
And locked.
And locked.
And then ballots are taken out only by our clerk, deputy clerk, or election workers.
Correct.
So I think that addresses all of the concerns made at public comment in terms of questions. So I'm glad you mentioned that there is surveillance.
Okay. There was a motion and support.
Yes.
Call the roll, please.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
I'm voting nay. I want nothing to do with ballot drop boxes.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Prony?
Aye. Motion passed 6-1. Okay, moving on to 8H, American Rescue Plan Act Advisory Committee update. Ms. Knapp,
Hello.
thank you for being here.
All right. I know it's been some time since I came and updated everybody. For that is because there is, I didn't realize how long it takes to get things done sometimes, so that I apologize. We've been working pretty hard and just takes a while to get our information. So I want to really start with just talking about the connectivity with the sidewalk and talking about the Jackman Road, the one on Jackman Road. So we have reached out. We have talked to Mr. Peacock, who is the owner of Brook Forest Apartments. In the very beginning, when we talked with him, he wanted to see sketches of the sidewalk, of the proposal, of where it was going to be going. Our hesitation was we did not have that until last week. So that was very hard to be able to get a clear answer on where he stood with the giving us an easement. But he did have a few requests with giving us an easement. He did not want his trees being torn down, cut down, and he wants the township to be responsible for shoveling in front of his property. I did share last week after receiving, making this memo, I did reach back out to him. He has seen them. He's still just wanting to know where the board stands, if the board is willing to take that responsibility of the snow removal, because that will be a thing that he is hesitant on giving us an easement for. Our supervisors department has been reaching out to Bedford Public Schools and talking to them about the connectivity for a while now. I did do a follow-up with Dr. Carl Schultz after receiving the sketches, because they might be losing, or the possibility of losing, some parking spots. I shared those diagrams with him. He was going to talk to Jackman Road Elementary principal and get back with me. With today being the first day of school, that was going to not be on his priority list, so I did not reach out to him. But later this week, I will follow up with him and see where they stand. And then, of course, the property on West Stearns. We just really are needing to remove some trees and some bushes. And let's see, and we might be needing an easement on the east side of Hidden Valley Drive. Manick and Smith gave us a price and the estimate of everything, including both projects, thinking that it would be easier to include it all. Before moving on, does anybody have any questions or concerns? Okay, then I'll just keep moving on.
I guess, does anybody have a concern about us clearing the snow?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the first.
Would that just fall on the maintenance department to do?
They just keep, going with the snow blower.
Yeah.
I don't see it being a big deal for them,
I
but
don't either. I think this looks nice. Connect the neighborhood to the school.
That was our thought.
Definitely need the crosswalk at Jackson.
oh, that'll all be in there.
Yeah.
That's why I seen all that. I like seeing that.
Yeah.
He wants to shift liability from himself to the township. So if you undertake that responsibility, it has to be done on a regular basis, because if you create a more dangerous condition by attempting to remove snow, or making it more dangerous than just leaving it as is, that could be an issue too. So
Was there something we could put in place as far as liability? I mean, if it's ice conditions and somebody slips, and we're not salting these.
well, that's
You know what I mean? Is
Well,
it going to fall back on us because we didn't salt them?
if you take on the responsibility of snow removal, that includes salting and making it safe for passage. That he's attempting to shift liability so that he doesn't have to go out and remove snow. He doesn't have to salt it. He doesn't have to put substance on it to melt the ice. He just wants to and say it's yours, and that Whether that'll be successful or not, it's another issue with respect to how Michigan law works on that issue. But I'm just letting you know that that's what this is all about. You probably already knew that, but that's what it's about. It's not just a labor issue. It's a lot more. It's a liability issue than anything else.
Because we'll have the same thing all in front of Township Hall too, up until the school's property on the south side.
Yeah, ours will be cleared every time.
Well, but again, it's all a liability issue from the south edge of our property all the way, and then it would be to the corner.
Who's a liability issue now in front of that apartment complex? Kids, when I drop off my kids, there's several kids that walk on the edge of the road in front of that property. Yeah. I mean, it's no different if there was a sidewalk or not. They're still using that. So
somebody gets hurt on his property, he's
so
insurance.
He's liable.
Yeah.
Well, that's a different issue. By having a sidewalk there, it's going to make for a safer passage for young people who do walk to school. But if you just understand, if you undertake the responsibility of cleaning it and it's drafted that way in an easement, we have to make sure we do it and do it on a regular basis and do it right.
It's a deal breaker for him though. Mm-hmm. So he was pretty clear about that. So
is it going to be the same thing for the across the street? The property, you're going to need an easement with them too, right?
The sidewalk's not going across the street, right?
Are you talking about
Dean and Jack?
where? I guess
Yeah, the
Sheet
peak properties.
Sheet 4 On Sheet 4, it's crossing the street before Dean Road.
You're correct.
Because of some of the utilities, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so but the corner that it is going to, I'm saying.
One other thing I would like you to do before you assume that responsibility, I would like you to check with your insurance agent and carrier to make sure that we're insured should a mishap occur, should a slip and fall occur that we would be deemed responsible for, that we have coverage for it. Because we're undertaking a responsibility on property other than government property. We're assuming that responsibility. So I want to make sure we're insured for it. If something happens and somebody doesn't get out there and there's ice on it, and there's a slip and fall.
So right now, we're under no liability. Kid's walking down the street and gets hit on the side of the road. But yet, if we put a sidewalk in to make it safer and somebody slips and falls, we're liable.
Right.
Well, you can be. I'm not saying don't do it.
Right.
There's a legitimate reason to do it, and that's to provide a safe passage for students, young people. So I just want you to be aware that if we undertake that responsibility, sounds like it's a deal breaker for him. If you want it there, then we have to make sure we approach it the right way. There's no substitute for adequate insurance coverage should we need it. I just want to make sure that when we call and we have a broken leg or something out there because somebody slipped on the ice and some court determines that we're not entitled to governmental immunity because we undertook that responsibility, that we have insurance coverage for a situation that occurs on someone else's property that we assumed responsibility to clean. That's all.
Mm-hmm. I personally don't like it.
Don't like what?
The fact that we got to clean his sidewalk, but I mean, it's a great project.
Right. Oh, I agree with you 100%. We need a sidewalk there and an absolute crossing. I see kids there every day standing on that corner waiting to play Frogger going across Jackman Road.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a legitimate reason to do it, to provide safety. Just do it right. We just need to do it right. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
If I can make a suggestion, if the board would want, I would think he would be willing to talk to the board. He was going to come to a board meeting, to one of our meetings to discuss, but something personal came up, so he couldn't. So if the board wanted to, if this is, because I don't want to waste our time or anybody else's time. If this is going to be where we aren't going to be able to continue, I'd rather know now instead of 5 months from now.
It sounds like the board wants to continue.
So
it's whether
if you're
or not
wanting to reach out to him, I can give you those contacts.
Well, I don't think it's him though. I think it's the insurance to find out. I think we all like the project. We all I think it's not a big deal to clear the snow. I think it's if we can through our insurance.
Well, we also have to remember too that we're waiting to hear back from the schools because they may be losing a couple parking spots, and I don't, that's the other thing.
And we could make the agreement just with him. If he sells the property, it reverts to whoever buys the property, and then we no longer are responsible.
So that question did come up. What about the small piece on the west side where after it crosses the road?
So at this time, so this actually changed. Our first thought was to go across the street, Dean, and then cross over to, but because of how the layouts with the electric and the sewer and all that kind of stuff, so we had to change. We have not reached out to that property owner to see if we're going to have an easement or any of that kind of stuff. So we'd have to go further into looking at that.
Because that'd be the other one too. Is if they don't want to do it, then
Right.
same thing, because they'll have a liability issue over there too.
I mean, when we did this project on Lewis Avenue, connecting all those sidewalks, I mean, it was, most people understand you put a sidewalk in front of the house, or the business, you know, they maintain it. We haven't dealt with this much with the projects we've done. So.
All right, if it's okay with the board, I'll go ahead and continue. So the IT, technical and audio and visual, Bob Miller and George Welling have been working on that. Bob, if you don't mind, if you want to come up here and explain a little bit about, as he's coming up here at the end of the week, I wasn't here on Friday, so he actually got a new quote. So I'm going to hand the newest information out to everybody as he's coming up.
Well, at least it's lower quote already.
I think it's just separated.
As is 22 versus 18.
Audio proposal, video proposal.
You got a copy for me? I haven't seen it yet either. Yeah, you've seen it. You have the audio. All right, I'll start and let you hop in. Hello, thanks for having us tonight. Well, as you've seen tonight, we had several issues with the microphones. You know, get closer, speak louder, that sort of thing. So the object here is to upgrade our audio. So George from his office back here, he can move some knobs and make the audio work much better. And to make that happen, we need to order some equipment, and George will tell us what we need.
Oh, boy. Okay. Let me see what I wrote down here first. The biggest thing is that people have trouble understanding what's going on. The sound's good in this room. You know, you can hear each other and all that, but what's getting to me in the control room is not enough to go out for broadcast. So, and we don't have the ability to individually handle each person's volume and voice. So the first thing there is a rack mount digital mixer, audio mixer. So every mic will be separate. And what happens sometimes, it gets late, you get tired, you start talking weaker, who knows what. Then we have the problem with the mic being over there, but we'll cover that later. The whole thing is I can adjust for that in the control room. You know, unless you guys like me coming out here to yell at you, but I don't think you want to do that, you know. And continuing under there is the cabling that has to be done. We got the cabling go from the sound to us, all 16 microphones. And that's putting them together, etc., that type of thing. Also, I want to get a wireless mic. The one thing that's frustrating for, I'm sure you and people at home, like whenever you do a resolution, you're trying to do this, talk to the people. And I want a wireless mic that you can actually do it from there or go wherever you want to talk to them. We had a handheld here, but it just didn't have the guts to do it. Let's see. And it's also asking for an Apple Pad because it's a digital mixer. You use that to do the controls, not the old slides and everything. This is a better way to do it.
That's all there is to it. And let's see. Also, we're also trying to look toward the future. There's another charge on this that should go on there for your consideration, is another stage box, which allows another 16 inputs if we ever come to needing that. For example, if we want to do the budget meeting from another room, run the sound that way. Who knows? You know, it's supposed to be the future. You try to think of everything ahead of time, and that was the only thing on top of what I have here in my hand, and that's the audio. It's very, very. I think we're losing people viewing because the sound goes down so bad sometimes, you know, and it's not a good presentation. This will make a heck of a lot better presentation because we have the control, keep the volume up, get it out there loud enough to do it, and yeah, anything on top of that? I'm done.
So we're just wanting to be able to just bring the board room up to date. So when you guys have presentations, when people want to speak and show the show things, we're able to have viewers at home and people here really understand what's going on.
Well, I just want to say the board really needs to come up with more ideas. We're doing the best we can in the ARPA committee, but we have $3.3 million to spend, and what you see here is under $600,000 probably. So we need to roll our sleeves up, maybe have, like Mr. Steiner said, a committee of the whole, and really see what you guys want, because you know we've got ideas. You know, we're doing the best we can. I mean, we could always pay ourselves back. You know, in areas that we've spent that ARPA would cover, but if you got ideas, you know.
I really like the idea of police cars. I think that's a good idea. It's something you're going to have to spend money on. They're big ticket items. It's coming out one way or the other. It is equally supporting throughout the community. I think that's a really good idea.
Mr. Steiner.
I do have a quick question. I was trying to match it up, but it's not line by line, but 3 75-inch TV screens, where would we go with all three? And I know things are going up, but we more than doubled the price per television?
Bob or George, can you help?
I mean, we
went
from
no idea on what.
$6,750 up to $13,755.
We're scrapping the video at this time. We're going to go back and do more research. We're going to see if the maintenance department want to approach them, see if we can buy the TVs on our own, see if they can install them, and go that route.
Yeah, that's it.
So we're going to go back to the drawing board on the video.
I mean, I know it says commercial 4K, but
We think we can get the same monitor TV that we have in conference room C, that we had the budget meeting on.
Mhm.
We'll
Okay.
get those.
Yeah, and that worked fine.
I would just look at the life. I mean, maybe the life on these, you know, even if they're not used a bunch, is a lot longer than, you know, we want them to last.
Even if we replace the one in conference room C 3 times, we'll still be saving money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul referenced the ARPA money, and piggybacking on what Craig said, public safety would be anything we can do for public safety as far as police, fire, the sidewalks for the public safety. And maybe the chief can answer this. Do we have enough of those automated CPR machines? I know a lot of departments can't afford those. I mean, do we need stuff like that, or do we have enough? Okay. Oh.
Hey, hold on.
I'm
If you,
sorry.
you got to come up to the mic, but.
George wants that more.
I'm just saying that that's an issue, and Paul, about getting paid back. Can we get paid back for the equipment washer and dryer we bought? And maybe
All of
buy
them.
another
We
one.
could
pay
probably come up
ourselves
with $1
back.
million in paying ourselves back.
I think we should look at that.
You know, but is that how we want to use the money?
Well,
You know what
that's
I mean?
what the money was intended for, was to purchase stuff like that.
We were also looking at purchasing more turnout gear, another
Absolutely.
washer for the other stations,
Right.
which would need plumbing. So we are looking at all that and trying to get some pricing on that also.
And is there any updated, I mean, we should ask, Sheriff Goodenough, is there anything else that we can buy for public safety? And I know I'm going to get clobbered by this guy for it, but, the speed signs, that he doesn't like, but the rest of us.
I don't follow him. Just tells me how fast I'm going.
Just
It's like a
saying.
game.
I understand.
50 as high as you can go.
But I like the idea of anything we can do for public safety or paying ourselves back to recoup some of the money
Right.
that we've already spent.
That's why we're talking to Chief to see what's outdated that we should really be replacing.
Yep.
The canine units have to pay for their own stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Paul Curtis's dog bulletproof vest.
So, that's just, we could look at parks. We've kind of been trying to work with the park board, and some of their ideas aren't matching up with what we would agree with as an ARPA committee. There's a lot of outdated playground equipment. There's a lot of outdated things like tennis courts, and, we could spend a lot of money in our parks.
were we going to use some of that money to make it 80 accessible pave the walking trail around White Park and Indian Creek? Wasn't that discussed at one time? Or somebody came to the board wanting to? They submitted something for that.
They did come to asking the ARPA committee for requests for that. To be honest with you, there was some members of the committee that went out to the parks, and we looked at the equipment, and there was a lot of equipment that is actually broken, unsafe, and we took pictures, and we gave that information back to the board, to the park board, because some of the requests, I understand, and they're asking because we have a lot of money. But if you're wanting, we need to fix what we have. Let's take care of what we have first, is what the committee kind of looked at first, is that we need to take care of what we have. And then, yes, we do need to dream big, but let's first take care of what we have. That's what we kind of told them.
The problem is the community spoke when a millage got turned down. So we can't continue to take monies and add doggy parks and paving trails that cost money to maintain, and we have to maintain what we have, make it really great, and we have to be careful. We only have so much money,
Right.
when we're not dealing with ARPA funds.
If you don't mind, if I can continue to
Oh,
give you
yeah,
some more
go ahead.
updates. I know we could talk about all the dreams of what we would love to
Go ahead.
use the money for. But one of the other things, I just wanted to let you guys know that we did last week actually signed the Monroe County Rescue Plan Act funding agreement. So we should be receiving that money for the culverts hopefully anytime soon now. And then the very last thing that we had last time when we came and talked with you guys, we were discussing about how we would like security cameras and the HVAC controls in the township up to date. And Paul, if you don't mind, just giving him any update with that you have on that, or if you guys have any questions.
Yeah,
we're
we're
still
working-
working in the process of that.
We're working on getting quotes from Habitat with updating our security here within. Our cameras and, outside cameras are not very good. And then with controls, we're looking at, we would like to use, and I wanted to put it on a future agenda item, the same company that just did the library's controls. So we have the same systems, but that would require the board not putting it out for a competitive bid. So that's something that you would have to think about, but we already put it out for a competitive bid and went with the company, and it hasn't been but, a year and a half, 2 years since we did it at the library. So, but being the same, it would pay for itself, and I think it's 6 or 7 year payback with control, so. But, yeah, that's all I have on that.
So is there any other questions? Just wanted to make sure you guys were aware where we are standing. So with the, I guess we could ask, I don't know if I have to have it on the agenda, but can I ask if we could get the okay of you guys being okay with us using just one company that were already used with the library for the HVACs, or is that something that we actually have to bring back on the online?
Well, we're not using township funds, so
Right.
we're using ARPA funds, so I don't think we should put it out for bid. I think it makes sense that it's all done by the same company and all interconnected.
But our policy says a certain thing, that over $20,000 has to be sealed, but so we would have to.
But is that for township dollars?
It's township dollars because they're ours now.
Yeah, it's still township either way.
Yeah, so we still have to follow, but I think, Mr. Golds,
I'm in favor of using CSO for the purposes of their product and matching what the library has. I think that's
I don't know what they're talking about down here.
The other thing too is if you get competitive bids and, maybe they're a couple grand higher, you give them the last right of refusal, or just say, you know what, we're sticking with this company because we've got the same type of systems.
Totally up to the board.
I'm fine with it.
I don't generally like doing this, but if there's a legitimate reason for using one company, and oftentimes it's done for single source, this is not a single source. There's more than one company that does it. But if there's a legitimate reason, because if you need connectivity or it makes better sense to do it, you could, for that reason, vote to suspend the policy for a legitimate reason to use the same company, provided that you can live with their bid. If they come in with a high bid, then you don't have to accept it. I mean, you really don't have any way to measure it without competitive bidding. You can vote to suspend the policy if you have a legitimate reason to do it with the spending of the ARPA funds. So something to think about.
I say we just put it out for bid.
Put out for bid and we can take them regardless.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can, but we'll see. It'll also keep them honest on the bid. They know, yeah, we got a free blank paycheck here.
With all of our bids, you do not, and oftentimes don't, for legitimate reasons, select the lowest bid. And so if you put it out for bid, and you and make sure you invite those that you want to bid on it, and do the general bidding process, then you can evaluate it better, and it might still work out. Probably the better way to do it.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Could we get an approval for the audio proposal so we can at least move forward with the audio?
Audio only, or?
Yeah.
It'll be everything minus the TVs.
Yeah, the video they want to come back with. Just the audio they're okay with. So it would just be the one quote, not the other one. So audio only.
You gotta come to the mic.
Yeah,
up to
gotta
the
come
mic.
to the mic,
Yeah,
George.
Yeah, George.
We can't hear you, George.
You guys don't have any fun anymore.
We don't have the wireless microphone yet.
But we're also part of that code,
Wireless
will have
mic.
their mics, so we don't have to worry about shutting it off, turning it, or turning your head, or moving the mic away. That's been the biggest problem so far. Okay? Thank you.
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we accept the bid from Great Lakes Sound Incorporated for audio proposal only in the amount of $10,195.50 as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion in support of Mr. Bruning. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Do I have to put in there, it comes out of ARPA funds, correct? Should I?
We can add that.
I'll add that it'll come out of ARPA funds.
Still support.
Okay. Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Jandatek?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Nay, I have a hard time justifying spending $10,000 on audio equipment for this room.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye. Motion passed 6-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would just say, start thinking about a possible date for all of us to get together and do brainstorm. And if you have thoughts and ideas, send them to Nikki. We are talking a little bit about Monroe Road with connecting there, the sidewalk, all the way to the, the Kroger district right there and the whole DDA area. So just another thought, but we need more thoughts. So, okay, moving on to comments from the public. Comments limited to 2 minutes.
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. First off, the Temperance Action Committee dealt with noise back when we did our ordinances. And just so you know, our commercial district is picked up between 12, 1, and 2 o'clock in the morning, usually on Tuesday nights. The Road Commission has summer hours, and we get letters from Stevens, those of us in downtown Temperance, that they're going to be out early because of the heat. So this needs to be studied well. As far as the deer, okay, who hired Dylan? You got to have a policy, and there was a limit, according to the minutes, of 2,500. So when we paid somebody 10,000, there's a problem. And I suggest that if you're going to use a dumpster, you use the one that's here then, instead of in the residential districts that they've been putting them in. It's not fair for us people to come to this township with concerns and then be accused. So, Mr. Peroni, verbally attacking me is not going to make you a man. That's a lost cause. And maybe it's time that we consider having ourselves a respectable supervisor and calling for a recall, because your behavior and your actions towards people in the public who come to you with concerns, and I didn't find that deer on purpose, and I do have paperwork from Stevens. They do not want the deer in the dumpsters. They did not give permission to dump there. Furthermore, the DNR I called when I found the deer because I felt it was probably something illegal, and it is to take out a deer. It is illegal to be taking deer out of season. So don't shake your head no. Little boy, you need to learn your laws too. I did my homework, and so I don't like being accused. I have FOIAs on my information sheet, but you go ahead, stamp your foot, because you have to have
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate them. Okay, next comment.
Josh Niederkor, 7948 Wiseman Road, Lambertville. Just to talk about the whole garbage pickup thing. I've been working in the business for 3 years already, straight out of high school, and I can tell you Republic is not really a good, decent company. We've been taking a lot of business from them. Even municipal contracts like Carlton, Frenchtown, Lapeer. They've been losing a lot of customers to us because they can't even do their routes. A lot of drivers call off. They prioritize their city contracts like Toledo and Sylvania, and they don't even care about Bedford at all. And so, yeah, one stop on one street, yeah, they don't really care for it at all. And they're not even local. When you're talking to somebody on the phone from there, it's not even from their local yard in Erie. They're corporates out of Phoenix. And as far as Stevens, we have some pretty big routes. Majority of the people in this township utilize our services. This is the company's hometown. We had a route on Tuesday was even over 1,000 stops, just they had to take part of it off and move to Thursday. Tuesdays we have to pull 2 loads because there's so many houses on the Tuesday zone. And as far as safety, yeah, try and get through certain areas like school zones before the school starts, because believe it or not, this is actually the 5th deadliest job ranked in the nation because of the way people drive. There's been people that have gotten hit before. I've had a few close calls before. So yeah, we try to get out of the way as much as we can before rush hour traffic and high traffic areas. Breakdowns, you have truck breaks down, that's time that's being wasted. Our guys want to get in, get out, get it done. They don't want to milk the clock, especially if they have to go run a load to the landfill and then go back and finish their route. Commercial is actually done separate from residential. Commercial, they try to get a lot of the routes done earlier in the mornings in parking lots where they fill up later, like office places, schools, you name it. And really, it's just the way it all functions. So the whole noise ordinance thing, it would not work at all. I can tell you just from experience and being in the business for 3 years plus already. So we do our best, we take care of our customers, and that's it. And Stevens does address complaints when we get them. Guys that disrespect customers or throw cans, they get chewed out for it. I've seen it. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Lamar Frederick, 3254 Deer Creek Drive. I applaud you for approving the drop box for elections. I support any tool, device, rule, regulation that helps our citizens vote more easily. And if somebody thinks that they're going to mess with that box, I would suggest that they follow the Fulton County, Georgia prosecutor, who today brought out the RICO statute to perhaps put a lot of folks in serious trouble down there who were trying to overturn the election, messing with the election boxes and things like that. And if you don't know what the RICO statute is, it's pretty serious. It says you are a criminal enterprise doing criminal things. That is not a good place to go. So I don't think anyone here in TV land would want to mess with that box. I'm also pleased to see that the group has been working on the routes from schools to school. The school tried that once, and they kind of walked away from the program because, as Manick and Smith has found, at several of these intersections in some places along the route, there are some serious impediments. But they can be overcome if you just pour money at it. But the one thing I don't like is this issue about going on somebody's private property. And Mr. Goldsmith has already told you, when you do that, you take the responsibility and the liability. If that's what you want to do, that's your call. Lastly, the sound system. Put a couple speakers back here so that we can hear what you say once in a while, because all of you talk to the microphone over here, and no one knows what you said.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it.
Yeah, well, fix it.
Okay. Comments from board members? Mr. Steiner?
Nothing extra this evening.
Okay. Mr. Montry?
Nothing from me.
Mr. Gore?
Just everybody have a good weekend. And again, school's in session. I know we haven't seen buses in a few months. Give our school bus drivers a break. Watch out for the kids. Stop for the bus lights, please.
Okay, Mr. Bruning?
Nothing more to add. Everybody have a good weekend. Go Blue.
Ms. Janizek?
As you all know, next Wednesday is tax deadline. Taxes are due next Wednesday. If you have any questions, please contact my department in regards to your taxes. If you're a senior, 62 or older, and you make less than $40,000 a year, you can contact my office to see if you qualify for summer deferment. And what that does is that just postpones your property taxes until February 14th, so you can make payments after the deadline without interest. But like I said, there's a form that has to be filled out for that. But that, have a good day.
Okay. Ms. Hirschberger?
The newsletter will come out September 13th, so check out the articles that are in there. There's a lot about elections this time and taxes and where your money goes. A lot of political groups have been sending out applications for ballots. They are not coming from my office. They have my name on them, yes, but they are not coming from here. So if you have a question on whether or not you've already filled out an application, give my office a call and we can let you know. I've been getting a lot of complaints about applications being mailed out, and their biggest complaint is they don't fit in the return envelope. So if you have one of those applications that does not fit in the envelope, it's not from my office, it's from one of the political parties. And then, I'm not sure if you're going to touch on it, but Saturday, September 10th from 8 to noon will be hazardous waste at Indian Creek Park. And that's all I have.
Okay. I was going to touch on that, so, yep. We have a cleanup September 24th from 9 to 3 at Indian Creek as well, on top of the Household Hazardous Waste Day. There's a potluck coming at Banner Oak School September 12th at 1. It is being put on by the Bedford Historical Society. So if you've never been to Banner Oak, I recommend you stop out, take a look at it, and see the building that the township maintains in partnership with the Historical Society. We deal with FOIAs on a regular basis, and the whole process. It's just difficult to deal when there's people aren't being honest, and we work hard in the township hall to do service and get things done, and the FOIA process can be a lot of work for the clerk's department, especially during election time when we get every day, and they're rabbit trails to where it ends up at a board meeting, and it's frustrating. So I show my frustration sometimes because I care about the community and residents. There's some residents that don't like it when I get upset, but it is what it is. And one deer got put in that dumpster, and when we got a call that it was in there, we went over there and got it out, or we poured dirt on it or covered up and got rid of the smell. You know, it's things are going very well at Township Hall, and we do the best we could do. Every single person here to save money and be frugal and work hard. So give us a chance. So anybody else have any more comments? Okay, motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Okay, we're adjourned.